Hi! In today's video I'm going to show you how to open up, disconnect, and remove your NuTone NM200 radio intercom master station. So the very first thing you should do before you begin to uninstall your NM200 is you need to turn the power off to the system. You need to go to your circuit breaker panel and figure out which circuit it's on, and if you're not sure you can flip breakers. Usually if the master is in the kitchen area, it's on a kitchen plug circuit or something like that, but you definitely need to shut the power off to it before you begin to remove it. And as we get a little further into the video, I'll explain in more detail as to why. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to shut this one off. Clock is off. Now we know it's powered down. So there are only a few things you need to have to remove a set like this. You need a Phillips screwdriver. You need a small flat screwdriver. You need some masking tape, a Sharpie, a pencil, and your phone. And we'll talk about the phone in a few minutes. So the first step to removing the master station from where it's installed is by removing these two panels. The left hand side is a door that opens, and this is a removable speaker panel on the right. On this particular unit, the hinge on the door is broken off, so if I swing it open, it just falls off. So I'm just going to put this out of the way for right now. Hopefully the door on yours is not broken. On this side, the speaker panel, you just grab the edges of the panel and you kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it will just pop off, and we're going to set that aside also. With those two panels removed, we can see the faceplate screws. There's one here in the center on the right, and there's one here in the center on the left, and that's where our Phillips screwdriver comes in handy, and we're going to unscrew the screws. These screws are somewhat long. They're about 2 or 2.5 inches long, so it takes a little bit to get them out. We'll get the left-hand side one out first. Put that down. Don't lose the screws. And then we'll remove the right-hand screw. Now, one of the things you need to know is when you take the screws out, the master station is not attached to the wall housing in any particular way. It will most likely just sit in the wall housing as it is, but you want to be aware of the fact that it's not actually connected. There are no straps or hinges or brackets or anything like that, so you don't want it to surprise you and fall out of the wall. So we'll take the right-hand screw out, put that aside, and then what you want to do is carefully slide it forward. Sometimes it's a snug fit, and once you get it out of the wall, you can tilt it down like this. And while you're holding it, what you want to do is you want to look for this green support wire. This is a strap. It's screwed to the opposite corners of the master station, and its purpose is to support the master station while you're working on it. So right up here in the top center of the wall housing, there's a metal hook, and what you're supposed to do is hook the green wire through the hook, and that will support the master station while it's folded up on the wall. Oh, I forgot. You need one other thing. This is optional, but it's sometimes a good idea. You need a cloth or a rag. And the reason you want the cloth or the rag is when the set is like this and it's opened up and it's supported by the green strap, the bottom edge of the faceplate is leaning up against your wall. And if you have a nicely painted wall or a faux finish wall, or maybe you have wallpaper or something like that, while you're working on it and it's kind of scooting around a little bit, you don't want it to make marks on your wall. So you can take your rag, you can pull it out from the wall a little bit, put the rag between the master and the wall, and that way you won't have marks on the wall when you're done. In this particular installation, this homeowner has the highest quality plywood on their wall, and we're not going to really worry about that, so we're not going to do the cloth thing. Let's do a brief overview of what we have behind the master station, and then we'll get to disconnecting it. So on the back of the NM200, here in the right hand end of it, we have this rectangular magnet, and this is the back of the speaker cone that's built into the master station. Here in the center on the back of the unit, this is this rectangular silver box. This is the AM/FM tuner assembly. On this side, this connection right here with the black, white, red, and orange wires, this is the connection for the chime module. And over here on the left-hand end of the set is the terminal board where all of the wires and all of the cables from the remote stations are connected. Back here in the wall housing, in the right-hand corner of the wall housing, this is the chime module. This is the part that makes the doorbell sounds in your system. And down here in the bottom right-hand corner is the low voltage transformer. Now let's talk about the low voltage transformer for a second and why you have to shut the power off before you open the set up. This type of low voltage transformer has built into it 2 internal fuses, and the fuses are there to protect the transformer in case something dramatically wrong happened to the master station so the transformer doesn't fail. The fuses in these transformers turn out to be somewhat fussy and somewhat finicky. What can happen is when you need to unplug the master station from the transformer, if you do it while the transformer is powered up, when the electrical circuit is turned on, when you unplug the connector, you can get this spike of power or spike as you disconnect it, and it can blow the fuses in the transformer. Likewise, when it's time to reinstall your master station, if you put the 2 halves of the plug together while the transformer is powered up, it'll make a little spark of electricity as the pins make their connection, and those little sparks can overload the fuses and then the transformer goes dead. The upshot of all of this is if you do any connection or disconnection to the transformer while it's powered up, you run the risk of blowing the fuses in the transformer. If that happens, the transformer won't work, so it's not able to power the master station, and what that really means is you're going to need to take the transformer out of the can where it's mounted here in the wall housing, and you're going to have to send it to us to get the fuses replaced. And not only is that another process that has to be done and it's going to take time, it also is going to be more expensive because you have to pay to have the fuses replaced. So it's really simple to just turn the circuit breaker off, and that's what you need to do first. So since the circuit breaker is off, what we're going to do now is we're going to safely disconnect the master station from the transformer. Off the master station, you have this multicolored twisted cable assembly. There are 2 black wires, 2 red wires, and a green wire, and they have this nylon plug at this end. And then from the transformer, there are 5 wires. There's a blue wire, a red wire, a yellow wire, a tan wire, and a green wire, and they're in the other half of the connector. And to unplug this, you just grab the wires on each end and pull them apart. This end is connected to the transformer, stays here in the wall, and this end stays on the master station, and we're just going to put this out of the way. Here we're looking at the end of the AM/FM tuner module. That's this part right here, and on the edge of it are 2 antenna connections. The orange wire right here is the AM antenna, and this heavy black coaxial cable with the shiny silver connector on the end is the FM antenna. Now, this is where your phone comes into play. When you go to disconnect everything to remove a master station, if you're sending it off for repair, altogether it could be gone 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, when you get it back and you have to reconnect everything, you might not actually remember where everything goes because you're not an intercom expert. It's the only time you probably ever have done this, and it's sometimes hard to remember. So a good thing to do is, this is where you use your phone. So what you can do is you can simply take a picture of what it is you're disconnecting. Like, we're going to disconnect the orange wire and the coaxial FM cable, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our phone and we're going to focus on it so we can see it clearly, and we're going to take a picture like that. Now, sometimes after even 2 weeks, sure, you've got a bunch of pictures in your phone and you think, oh, I've got it covered, I've got pictures. And then you go back and you scroll through the pictures and you think, I don't remember why I took that picture. What was I taking it of? I don't really know. That's where your pencil comes in handy. And I like a yellow pencil because it's easy to see. Sometimes what works really well is you take your yellow pencil and you point at what it is that you're taking the picture of. Like here, I'm pointing at the orange AM wire, and then you take a picture, And when you go back and look, since you did the pencil thing, you'll know, oh, I was taking a picture of the AM wire, and oh, I see where it's connected, and I'm a genius. That's what the phone is for. The other way you can do this, although I think taking pictures is a good idea, is the old school way. And this is where your blue masking tape comes into play. And it doesn't have to be blue, it could be any color. It doesn't really make any difference. So we're going to disconnect the AM antenna first. So all you have to do is you push the little tab on the connector, you push it in, and the orange wire unplugs. And there we have it. Now on the orange wire is this large blocky black thing. This is a ferrite core, and the orange and AM antenna wire is wound through the center of the core, and this helps eliminate some interference on your AM reception. So we're going to leave that connected. But we need to remember that this is for the AM antenna. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little piece of blue tape like this, and we're going to wrap it around the orange wire like this, and we're going to use our Sharpie, and we're going to write on it AM antenna. And now we remember what that's for, and this goes in the wall housing. We can do the same thing on the FM antenna. The coaxial cable with the shiny connector on it for the FM, that's a threaded connector, so you have to unscrew it, and it's like one turn at a time, and you'll get that unscrewed, and it unplugs. And you can also take a picture of this if you want to. Once you have it unplugged here, we can do the same thing. We can take our blue tape, we can wrap it around the cable, and we can write FM. And since it's a small piece, we'll write antenna on the other side, and that stays in the wall housing also. Back here in the right-hand corner of the wall housing, this circuit board is the chime module, and this is the part that makes the doorbell sounds in your system. And off of the chime module is this 4-wire cable. And the colors in the wires are orange, red, white, and black. And if you follow them from the chime module to the back of the NM200, you'll see that they're plugged in here on the circuit board, and there's this little socket here on the end of the cables, and it plugs into a connector that's on the circuit board itself. And actually, right in front of the connector, it says Chime on it. So that should be fairly easy. However, since you may not remember because you've never done this before, it's another good opportunity. You can put a piece of blue tape on it, and you can write Chime. But since that will allow you to easily know this is the chime wire, you also need to remember where to plug it in. And this is another good opportunity to use your phone and your pencil, and you can point to the connector. So the pencil is pointing at where it says chime, and you can line it up with your phone so you can see it clearly. And you can take a picture so you remember that's where the socket where the chime cable plugs in. And now we're going to unplug it, and all you have to do is pull it straight up. And that stays in the wall also. Almost everything stays in the wall on a model like this, so that makes it pretty easy. We're almost done. There isn't that much more to do. We have to disconnect the cables that come from the remote speakers, and that's what we're going to do next. This is a close-up view of the terminal board on a NuTone NM200, and the terminal board is made up of all of these green sockets, and plugged into each green socket is a green connector. And the green connector has the wires that come from each remote station. So if your house has 9 remote stations, there'll be 9 cables with 9 green connectors. If you only have 2 remote speakers, there'll only be 2 cables with 2 green connectors. In this particular installation, they have 4 remote speakers, so there are 4 plugs and 4 cables. Now on the terminal board there is also the connections for the door speaker, and that's these 2 screws right here. And on the terminal board right here under the screws it says door, and then it says black and red, and surprisingly enough the wires connected to those screws are indeed black and red. So we'll disconnect those first. You can loosen the 2 screws, and then you can remove the black and red wires from underneath the screws. And this again is another good opportunity to label the wires with a piece of blue masking tape, and or take a picture of where they go on the board here so you remember when you get it back. And those again go back in the wall housing. Now we have to disconnect the green plugs from the sockets on the terminal board. Now, in most installations, the maximum number of remote speakers on an NM200 are 13 remote stations, and that's a combination of inside and patio stations. It does not count front door or entry door stations. In most houses, the speakers were connected up in some specific order, numbers 1 through 13. And if you've had your system for many years, you're probably kind of used to how the ordering is, and the sockets are all numbered individually, and they correspond to the numbers on the switches on the front of the unit to allow you to adjust how each speaker will operate. So when you disconnect these and then later need to reconnect them, it's really helpful if they're marked so that you remember where they go, because otherwise it'll be out of order and then it's difficult to figure out which room is which. So the way I like to do this, while you can easily do the blue masking tape thing and put one piece of blue masking tape on every cable, there's actually an easier way to do this, I think. And the way I like to do it is I use my Sharpie pen, and I'm going to mark each connector as I disconnect it. So this last one here at the top, so number 1 starts here and it goes down and then it crosses over and it comes back up. This last one is labeled as the patio station. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug the green connector, and the way you do that is you sort of grab the ends and you wiggle it back and forth and it will unplug. And once you have it unplugged, on the end of the connector right here, I'm going to take my Sharpie, I'm going to put a P, because P is for patio. And that just makes it really easy. So we'll put that back in the wall. And then over here, this is number 1. And we're going to unplug number 1 the same way. We grab the edge and we wiggle it and it pops out. Now, you could put a number 1 on here, but what I typically like to do, because I think it's easier and maybe it's a little cooler, is I just put 1 dot, because 1 dot is number 1. And then that goes back in the wall. And then we'll unplug this one. This is number 2. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put 2 dots. And that can go there. And then we have the last one to disconnect, and if you're really paying attention, you might be thinking, oh no, wait, what's wrong? How come this one's blue and all the other ones were green, and he only talked about green connectors? Well, in the NM200 installation kit, for each station they gave you 1 green connector and 1 blue connector. And some installers preferred the blue connectors, some installers preferred the green connectors. The blue connectors are sometimes fussy and sometimes can be somewhat problematic when the wires are connected into them. And the idea behind the blue connectors were, it didn't require a screwdriver like the green connectors do. The green connectors, you insert the wire in the hole here and then you tighten down the little set screw right there. The blue connectors don't require a screw, and we'll unplug this. They have these little flippy tabs right here. There's 1 for each pair, and when this is open, it's like this, and then you stuff the wires in the hole of the clear connector cover, and then when they're both inserted all the way, then you push this and it snaps closed. The problem with these sometimes is, as the wire is moved around and twisted and bent and everything, sometimes the push to close clear plastic covers will pop open and then the wires come loose. So these were somewhat problematic. I never really liked these, but if your system has these, it's just something you have to be aware of, because it is what it is. Now, while I was talking, you might have thought, well, he probably forgot which one that was, but I didn't, because I remember that this is actually number 3, and we'll put 3 dots on it like that. And with the last one disconnected and all of the wires tucked back into the wall, all we have left to do is remove the master station from where it's hanging off the wall housing. So we're just going to lift it up a little bit to take the weight off the green support wire. We unhook it from the hook and the master station comes away. And that's all there is to disconnecting your NuTone NM200 master station from where it's installed. Now, when you get this back after it's been repaired and it's time to reinstall it, pretty much all you have to do is follow this video backwards. For instance, in the beginning part of the video where I was showing you how to disconnect the orange antenna wire, and I point out where the orange antenna wire is, and you push the clip on the connector and you remove the wire. All you do is do the opposite of what I say. When I tell you to disconnect the orange wire, you reconnect the orange wire. When I tell you to disconnect the FM antenna, you reconnect the FM antenna. You plug the chime module connector back in, you plug your individual plugs back into the terminal board, you put your door speaker wires back on. It's really just the opposite of what I showed here in this video. And since you will have marked things with tape, and since you will have taken a lot of pictures, and your pictures have you pointing at things with your yellow pencil, it should be pretty easy to put it back in. If it's not, and you're not sure, you can always call us and I'll help you. Remember that when the very last thing you're going to do is you're going to plug the master station back into the transformer. When you do this, you have to have the circuit breaker turned off. Remember how important it is because of the fuses in the transformers that when you unplug or reconnect the transformer to the master station, you don't want to blow the fuses and then you have to pay to have the transformer repaired. So before you put this together, go turn the circuit breaker off. Hopefully you mark that also so you remember which one it is. And then with the power shut off, you can take the two halves, you plug it back in, put it back in the wall, and you're good to go. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube because that always helps. If you like our videos and like our channel, please subscribe. There'll be a banner right here. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we put up a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.